We're Batman at 89.
Hello, and welcome back once again to Bat Minute 89, the podcast where we analyze, scrutinize, and dangle each minute of Tim Burton's Batman film off a ledge and make it swing back and forth above a cadre of amazed policemen. I am one of your hosts, Niall McGowan.
And I am one of your other hosts, John Parker.
And today we're joined once again by a very good guest and Bat fanatic, Dan Kampling.
Hello again.
Thanks for joining us.
Yes.
And today we're talking about minute 26. Minute 26 of Tim Burton's Batman begins with two hired goons in the middle of a crazed shootout and ends 1 minute later with one lone hired goon in the middle of a crazed shootout. So,
oh my God.
What happens? Yeah. What happens to the other guy? So we'll get into that.
Yeah, with this little maniacal laughing when he's shooting at him. It's like, and yeah, like what we mentioned last week, it's like, yeah, they pretty much are in the open. They're not really trying to hide behind something, you know, like basically that one guy's standing right in the doorway shooting straight at the cops. And then like, oh, hey, look, we have chemicals over here that shoot in your face. Ha ha. Of course, we don't know, like, hey, did his skin turn white too? Or, hey, what happened to, what was in those?
Oh, now that would be an interesting, like, side movie. You know, like the way we're getting Star Wars, Rogue One and things. Let's get some Batman side movies on the go.
Because we do see that, like, if anyone's ever, like, tried to, you know, like, after finding out, like, oh, this guy got turned into this guy by these bunch of chemicals. Like, I know in the comics they've done, like, oh, you know, recreating the Joker experiment and the latest version of Harley Quinn, particularly even seen in the Suicide Squad film. They flat out, yep, same kind of chemicals, dump her in, she comes out like with the white skin and stuff as well. But it seems like you really need to make these chemicals more secure, really. Like, because anyone could just come in and do this.
Yeah, they're just open vats, and the only thing stopping you falling in is quite a low rail. Yeah. Like, it'd be very easy to tumble into them. To
be fair, at least it's not like, you know, the Death Star. At least it has a rail. So, like,
that's right.
Yeah, there's some concern for safety.
But anyway, as we get into the action here, like these two goons, known officially as Hood in yellow trench coat. I personally think it's more of a tan color, but whatever. But and then Hood with beard. But we'll talk about Hood with beard next minute. But yeah, they both come running away from the cops, and then who should descend from the ceiling?
A monster.
It's a bird. It's a plane. It's it's just the title character. No, actually, when you see him descend down, I'm like, see, yeah, this is what you should have been doing at the start, at the start of the movie with Nick and Eddie, where it's just like, you know, I'm just kind of, like when he stands there majestically does it. It's like, no, it's great when he just descends upon him, like, gotcha.
Yeah. Oh. You know what? I think it actually would have been cool if you didn't see Batman until this moment. Imagine if this was the introduction. There's this big shootout going on, crime happening, and then all of a sudden, from out of nowhere, boom! Rather than he just takes out two random hoods at the beginning.
That genuinely could have been like a really interesting, like if they'd done the Nick and Eddie scene, where like you just seen it's like maybe like a shadowy figure, and then something attacks them. Yeah. And then like they're later on going on like, oh, it's a giant bat and like things like that, and like we the audience haven't seen him yet. And then this is the intro. That actually would have been a good angle.
Yeah.
That's right, but it just wouldn't fly a major motion picture saving the title character to this point of the movie, I don't think.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, Batman Begins doesn't show up until like an hour in, so
yeah, but you already know who he is in Batman Begins. You've seen, that's the thing. It's kind of like everyone knows Batman. You're not going into that like, who is this mysterious figure?
Well, I did know as well that, like we noted in the recording of this show, that like, because you see Batman for like 2 minutes at the beginning, and then it's minute 18 is when Bruce Wayne's introduced. So I guess, yeah, it potentially would have annoyed people if you had a film called Batman, you didn't see him in the beginning, and then you waited like nearly 20 minutes into the film until you're just with like, there's a reporter, and there's these gangsters, and there's like, they all like, where's Batman? Where is he? What's going on? So,
I mean, I do love it when movies do that, though. They save the main character until like 40 minutes or something.
Cool. I was just going to mention that I think on the special features, they did mention how like that was one of the things that they did to differentiate themselves from Superman the movie, was that they were like, no, let's just be very upfront and show off the character and, you know, like not do the whole 40-minute origin scene, which was good because then later Nolan could do it at the time he did, and that was fine. But if you would have done that at that point, that probably would have been the unfair comparison.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I mean, I don't mind the Superman movie, but I'm not a huge fan of it. I'll be honest. I don't want to offend anyone.
Well, you're not going to be invited to the Superman movie podcast. No.
But yeah, anyway, so we get Batman like descends gracefully, and we got a blast of the
and it's actually Michael Keaton too. Yeah. You know, it's like you can actually tell that's Michael Keaton.
Him in the actual outfit as well.
Because that's like one of the things, like, of course, this is going back earlier, you know, in your minutes, because like that very first shot that you see of Batman, it's not Michael Keaton.
Is it not?
No, it's like, when you look at it, that's like one of the, because like when you look at his face, it's not. Yeah, I think like when he does the descent, it looks like it is him, but just for some reason, that very first shot where you see him there, you could tell that if you look at his face, it's like, that's not Keaton. Like, it's still majestic. It's cool. Every time I see it, it's like, oh boy, there he is. But it is just a little like when you look into it as much as I have, you're like, oh.
Yeah, I love it when Batman's descended. He looks really cool. He looks really tough.
Yeah.
Which is great, because obviously Michael Keaton's not the biggest, strongest, most muscular guy. But he looks really, really scary. Like, it's good lighting, the work with the shadows. It kind of looks like artwork. Like, you could imagine maybe Tim Burton was picturing a comic book panel or something.
Right. Oh yeah, very much so. Yeah, I think the lighting in this film does a lot of favors to the outfit as well. Because like there's times when you see him in a more bright light, and it's like, oh, it doesn't look that great.
Yeah,
but like,
it's
lit like this, like, he looks amazing. But still stands as, I put it down as my favorite of the bat suits. So.
But once again, very conscientious decision by the cinematographer Roger Pratt, who was just like, let's make sure he's kind of in shadow and stuff. Don't show too much of him. And that was like a good example of how it's like you can't really see his eyes that well. They're dark, and then kind of part of his face is still in black. And although I always kind of was curious about how it's like in that first draft of Sam Hamm's script, he always said like, oh, he's going to have the white eyes and it's supposed to be like a reflection type of deal. But I guess for them, they were just like, it's going to be, it's like, oh, it'll be too hard to see out of the mask even without those lenses. So just drop them. And then of course we got the famous black eyes around him.
I think we talked about the eye lenses way back when, because I think our consensus was just that like you have to give Michael Keaton something to work with as well. Because how much can he do with like just the mouth? It's like, gotta give me my eyes, guys. Let me do something.
I'm not RoboCop, guys. I gotta, you gotta see my eyes, because of course that's what Tim Burton's crazy about. He's like, oh, he's got those eyes. And, you look at him and you're like, oh, I believe this guy could put on a suit and beat up criminals and stuff. And then you're like, well, Tim, did you not really pay attention in the comics where it was like he had to dress like a bat? Because if he's just, like you said, a tough dude that goes out and beats up people, nobody's intimidated by him. Like, they did say that in Batman Year One, but it's like, no, it's your movie. You do it how you want to.
Yeah.
But that's great, because now you can watch the Nolan movies and you can
I like that he did that he took Batman and made it his own thing.
Even more so in Batman Returns, but yeah.
Then after that we get our first look at Batman's grapple gun, which is interestingly enough apparently first introduced in this film. Like before that, he had he didn't have it wasn't in gun form. Apparently, what he had initially was it was just like a manual. It was he had with the bat rope or the bat line, which
yeah.
apparently was a grappling hook or grappling line, or just a batarang attached to a line, which we saw earlier in this film, which had to be manually thrown to a targeted area. But like now, this film introduces like, oh, he's got a grapple gun, which is a thing we see all the time now. It's integral to like the Arkham games. He has to have the grapple gun. It's a thing that you can't lose it. It's just it's essential. And I remember even with the commentaries for the animated series episodes, where like I can't remember, it's Paul Dini or Bruce Timm or someone. They're sitting just watching it, and Batman's grappling out of a situation, and they're like, we use that grapple gun way too much. Like every single situation he was in, just grapple his way out of it. That's all he had to do.
Well, it works because it makes him more majestic when he takes off, and the cape's billowing and everything. And...
Oh yeah, don't get me wrong. I'll never knock the grapple gun. It's awesome.
No. I know. But I'm just like, hey, it's great.
He should just use it every scene, to be honest.
Yeah.
I did note as well, when I was researching this, they said in the comics, Batman once utilized a miniaturized pistol-like harpoon gun called the Batpoon. Which,
that's not a good name.
Yeah. It's like Batman's out to get some poon. So
Do I have to edit that out? Do I have to beep that?
No, we're fine.
Well, before we get too much into this, I want to talk about it's the suited hood. Now, after Batman descends and we see the two hoods fire on him, the one on the left literally moonwalks his way out of the scene. It's every time I look at that and I go, okay, did Tim Burton go up to that actor and go, okay, now for this scene, you need to get out of the frame. The only way we can do it is if you step backwards. Could you give me a moonwalk? just don't turn and run away. Don't put your back to the camera. Don't do that. Just moonwalk your way out of the scene. And the actor's
maybe that is an effective technique. Maybe that's what they teach you in self-defense. I'm not sure.
It's just every time I look at that, I'm like, why is that actor moonwalking out of the scene?
It could have been like he was told that like they were hiring for like the Joker's goons during like Party Man and stuff, and he's just like, I could get back in here. Maybe I just show off a little razzle dazzle.
Yes.
He just thought, we'll bring him back later on. That was really good.
Mm-hmm.
Good work.
Yeah, we're gonna. Yeah, we can hire you as a stunt person. So like later on when we do a certain scene, we won't have to get another person to do it. But just. But
anywho, but yeah, then Batman does the classic move here of he grapples onto who is known as Hood in yellow trench coat,
or beige,
and yanks him off the edge. Yeah. Then yanks him off the edge of the railing, and for like the longest time when I was a kid, I always thought he shot him in the mouth. For some reason, I thought he was hanging him by the mouth, because like you see now it actually goes into like his shoulder. But for some reason, I think it's the guy's expression, because he's kind of like agape when he goes over.
Yeah.
And then it's when he's swinging.
I can believe you.
The way he's going like, no. So it's the way he's saying like, it sounds as if he's got like something in his mouth. So I was like, oh, he's grappled him in the mouth. But no, apparently it's just that guy just.
Now you got me thinking that's how Bruce Wayne goes fishing. He just breaks out the grapple gun, and then it's like, got it. And then all he has to do is just reel it in with like the mechanism. Yes.
That would be amazing if he hung them by the mouth. That'd be terrifying.
Of course, I think with your weight, I think like the hook would just rip right through your skin, and then you'd be like, okay, I'm dead.
Oh.
But no, in the comic book adaptation, you see it goes through his jacket.
But
something I really liked about this, which I don't know why I'd never noticed before, I think just because I'm not watching it a minute at a time, was like when he fires it, it also shoots like smoke or gas or something, which I never really took that in before. I thought that was quite interesting, that it disorientates them and then he pulls them forward. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's either is it disorientating him, or is it just more that it's like a gas powered gun? Like, it might just literally be like that's the excess just coming out of it.
That seems like a lot of smoke if that's just what's powering that little thing.
Yeah, Tim Burton just likes to smoke. Like, he
does this.
Like, how many times have we had to comment on the amount of steam going on?
Yeah, true.
Yeah, another bit is, God, it's so badass when he just takes that line and just yanks on him. I'm like, yes.
Yeah, the look on his face, he looks like he's going to murder that guy.
I do have some notes on the guy who plays Hood in Yellow Trenchcoat. His name is Wayne Michaels, and he's just a stunt guy. But the range of stuff he's been in is weird because he's been in 89 things. But apparently his range is from, like, he was in Superman 3, like Empire of the Sun with Christian Bale. It's an Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. He did the bungee jump at the beginning of GoldenEye. And then he's also in One Foot in the Grave. And the British Empire, which is
not so good. Those two,
on the intensely lame side of British sitcoms. There, One Foot in the Grave is good. The British Empire is just
Although that's interesting that this guy's obviously used to being dangled off a cable with that bungee jump.
Oh yeah, there you go. Maybe that's why he got that job. That could have been the thing on his CV. Is like, I was the Batman dangling rope guy. So.
Oh yeah, get him.
I've always wanted to try it, but I hear it's not too good in the crotch area.
I once went indoor rock climbing, on the fake walls, and that was the same kind of thing. The harness you're in case you fall, it's not comfortable. No.
But here, though, we get like I like what's happened here in that I wonder if it's supposed to be inferred that Batman planned this or if it's just a happy accident. Because as the guy's swinging, that's when Gordon and the cops come up and they're pointing the guns at Batman. But it's like they can't shoot him because this guy's dangling in front. They'll hit him instead. So I'm like, that seems like a thing in the comics or in like the Nolan films that would have been like, oh yeah, he did that intentionally. That's how badass Batman is. But this one is a bit more like, well, maybe it just worked out that way. But I really and then I like I think in the last week's show, because we mentioned Gordon has two great oh my gods in this film. Like the first one's with Robert. When he's like, Eckhart, sir. Oh my God! Come on, let's go. And then this one is just the oh my God! Finally seeing Batman. And I think actually beyond what's coming later in the chemical plant, I think this is the only contact Gordon has with Batman in this film as well. So
I think it is.
You should really take a picture, guy, because you ain't going to be seeing much of him. So,
well, I loved what the Hood says because he screams out, "Let me down!" And I just thought, you want to be careful saying that because you're dangling there on a cord. Batman might just cut you loose and let you go, like in Arnold Schwarzenegger in Commando.
Yeah, or the Joker in The Dark Knight, let her go. Oh, it's a very poor choice of words there. But speaking of. Actually, no, I was going to say speaking of the Joker, but I did want to note as well that in the original script for this little interaction is way more sort of badass. Like, this is great, but like Sam Hamm originally had something a bit more involved in mind, but it just seems like it would have been way difficult to film. It was apparently initially supposed to come down and launch a barrage of steel ball bearings across the floor, which the hoods tumble around, much like Batman is Kevin McAllister or something.
I mean, it's cool, but it seems a bit slapstick.
Yeah, and then apparently Hood was to pull a gun, Batman would fling a batarang at him and pin the gun to the wall, which would have been awesome, actually.
Oh.
Yeah.
Ooh, yes, yeah. I remember that part in the script.
Yeah, and then he goes over and lifts one of them off the floor and knees him in the face, which is like, it's just excessive. But
brutal Batman there.
Yeah, and there's another bit that follows, actually, which is where he takes out a telescopic billy club. So a bit like the kind of double-bladed lightsaber, or like Tim Drake Robin's, the thing that he has that kind of staff thing. And he's supposed to have a fight with that as well, but I think they must have been like, there could have been, actually I would imagine, but it almost definitely was, that like when they were planning out the fight sequences, they were like, this isn't the most mobile of suits. Like this is
It's like, yeah, it's like under Sam Hamm's impression. It's like, oh, I thought he was just going to be in Superman tights. So yeah, you can do all those moves, but no.
See, like now, because back then, again, Superman tights for that, but that's ridiculous. But then we did just see that first season of Daredevil was like, he's just on a jumper and some trousers, and it looked great. But like, I think
that was my favorite part. Daredevil looked best before he got the Daredevil suit in that series, I think.
Oh yeah, I think there was much more of the journey with that of like, him actually getting the stuff together, and then season 2 when he has it, it's just like, I kind of liked it when he was just building little bits along the way and stuff. But
pretty much, but of course he wore that. He kind of wore a costume like that in that trial of the Incredible Hulk, and I remember when I first saw the details for that, I was like, oh hey, nice. But and then of course in Frank Miller's Man with No Fear, he had that costume too.
But
in this, I love the way Batman, once the cops have seen him, as you said there, the way he vanishes from sight and just slips away in the blink of an eye. That's pretty cool. And what I found interesting was the way the police are shocked that he's real and he exists. But they also, I think they know, oh, well, he's technically doing something illegal, but he is on our side here. We don't want to open fire.
Yeah. I think, I do like that, because, again, that's one of the things that you can only do for so long in any Batman film. And I always like it when they do it, though, when he's more of a mythic figure. Because once you introduce him at the end of, like, whatever big event happens, then people know that, oh, yeah, Batman's real. But I do like that kind of like, he's the whispered name in the night. And even when Gordon sees him, it's like he's only heard that, like, oh, yeah, some guy's going around doing whatever. And they say it's a giant bat. And then he sees him, and it's just like, oh my God, like it's like, it's actually happening.
Do you think Gordon thinks that he is actually a monster like those criminals, or does he just think he's a crazy guy?
He's a little too literal-minded for it. He's not hopped up on smack or something to really see, like they are. Like they really do see, like, oh man, it's a giant bat. But with them, it's like, oh, that's just a guy in a costume.
Yeah, they've got reason to believe otherwise, don't they? They heard about their friend apparently having all the blood drained out of his body.
Yeah, Johnny Gobbs, the legend of Johnny Gobbs. That was a debate we had in that episode, Dan. I wonder what you thought. Like, we were like, did Batman deliberately kill Johnny Gobbs?
Yeah. Well, I guess that would explain a little mishap that's probably going to happen later on in the movie. But I think there was supposed to be, this was some years ago, but I remember seeing that somebody was actually going to make I think they called it Batman Prologue, and I guess their intention was to make like pretty much like do whatever that deal was with Johnny Gobbs, and they wanted to like make a fan film, and they did like some test deals where they made it look really close to the movie, but I guess for some reason, I guess it didn't come to fruition, or maybe it still is going to be made, but it would be interesting if hopefully that pops up. I don't even know if the script is leaked out for it or anything, but I was like, oh, that's an interesting idea. Yeah,
that would be amazing. I would watch that, definitely.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, definitely got a couple of bums and seats for that over here. Anyway, so. But anyway, back to the minute. What we see now is Jack Napier still trying to make his exit somehow. Running around, finding out that pretty much every route he's about to take seems to be covered and very atmospherically done, like through the steam. At one point, he hears like the cops showing, like, "Oh, he's gone that way,"
and he eyes something very familiar to us, Jack Nicholson fans out there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I wonder if this was a deliberate nod. It's like, well, it's Jack Nicholson. He's got an axe.
It's gotta be, hasn't it? There's no way that's an accident. I mean, that axe, though, the way they just leave it out, is that standard protocol? I thought that'd have to be kept in a lock cupboard or behind some glass.
I would have said, yeah, at least behind glass. Yeah, it must have been like, I guess maybe, to be fair, with Axis Chemicals, what we've seen here, it's not the safest environment in the first place. So,
well, it's like, what was that axe for anyway? Like in case of fire, open up all the, bash this one thing with chemicals over here. That'll take care of
the comically green chemicals, as we see as they spill out. They're it's like a comic book. Surprise, surprise. The neon colors. Yeah, I'm not too sure.
But that is like, yeah, we got this when Jackie hits a container full of the chemicals with the axe, it all spills out. But that's the thing, because I'm guessing, this, unless this happens a lot to Gotham City Police, this almost makes up for the whole like the Nazi-esque leather coats and whatnot. Because I guess they need protection from all these chemicals that are just spraying around everywhere. And even then with the stuff that's flooding the floor, like it reminded me of the end of Who Framed Roger Rabbit, when like all the dip's spilling everywhere, and like Judge Doom's just like and he starts properly melting. I was like, I wonder what shoes these cops have, because like that stuff, like what is it? It could potentially be them dead right there. But
well, if you've noticed, the cops don't really react too much to this stuff. They don't seem bothered by it in the least. It doesn't concern them that they're getting sprayed with chemicals. So
it could be like they got the new shipment of New Rock steel coat toe-capped boots that were all the rage in the UK in the late 90s. So it's like Gotham City got them 10 years in advance.
I had a pair of those boots. They were heavy duty,
But and then I think this is the bit then we see Jack going up these stairs. I think these are the stairs from Aliens.
Yes.
And I'm pretty sure that the that area where Batman yanked the yellow coated hood, as we like to affectionately call him. I think that it's like at one point in Aliens, it's like they were like all the Marines were like surrounded by that area, and I think I do like whenever the last time I saw it, I was like, that's it.
Yeah, it suddenly made sense.
I think it's such a good location. I wonder why they didn't use it again. Like, it just seems to be like Aliens, Batman, that's it. Like, I know, because there's certain, like, there's the, what do you call them? The, the rocks that are used frequently in the old Star Trek show that show up, like, loads of times over. Like,
Vasquez rocks?
The Vasquez rocks, yeah. And, Vasquez, Aliens, oh my God, what a coincidence. But the
connection, yeah.
So they use them loads of times. And then the diner in, When Harry Met Sally is used in like loads of different films. But like, this chemical plant's just like, nah, people will recognize it. It's like, I think it's a really...
Right. And I guess I should also mention that, like, when I drive home from work from a TV station that I work at, I have to pass by this vegetable oil plant, and I swear it looks just like Axis Chemicals. So every time I drive by it, I'm like, oh, look, there's Axis Chemicals. Because I remember once I was talking with a friend where they were like, oh, I'd really like to make The Killing Joke into a movie. And I was like, yeah, and you could go to one of those places, and I'll be like, oh yeah, it'd be fun. I would love to recreate the Axis Chemicals deals, except make it more like the comics and stuff like that. And we were always like, okay.
Oh.
And then we were like, wait a minute, we actually have to like know somebody that works there, and they probably don't want you in there like shooting guns and stuff like that. But yeah. That vat of oil there is all right if one of us takes a plunge in it, or we could just throw like a fake body in there. Is that okay? That won't mess up anything of yours, right? Yeah. Oh yeah. Don't worry about it. You don't want to know about what's in that vegetable oil.
It's not very good for you anyway, so who cares?
But then that's the kind of end of the action for the minute. Now we get a brief shot of once again a shootout between now alone Hood with beard and the rest of the coppers. So, but then that's all in terms of the actual visuals, and we'll get into the scene that connects that obviously in the next episode.
Yes.
So that's all the notes that I have for this one in particular. Like, but
yeah, it's the same. I've got no more notes there. I mean, Dan, do you have anything you want to say?
Yeah, do you suppose now might be the time to ask, like, if you have any what's with you in this film? Like, what's your history? When did you first see it, and like what does this film mean to you?
Well, believe it or not, this story can actually begin on the day I was born. I know it's gonna sound long, but I'll make it short. But I was born on January 12th, 1989, which was not only the anniversary of the Adam West Batman show premiering, but apparently it was also when Entertainment Tonight first showed the trailer on their show. And so I can literally say that I was born the same day that the first trailer for this apparently was released. Now I've heard other reports that like, oh, it was out around Christmas or something like that, but I've seen it in print that January 12th was when they did it, and I was like, that's it. It's in print, so it happened. and luckily enough, I had a brother, and he's 3 years older than me. So basically, whatever he was into, I got into. And apparently, when he was 3 years old, when this movie's coming out, it was a big deal for him. And the story goes, I can't quite confirm this, but I'm just going off of what my mother told me. But apparently, when this movie came out, in June, around that time, or maybe it just around in the summer, whenever we got around to seeing it, they took 6-month-old me to go see the movie. Now I know what you're thinking, that like when you're 6 months old and you take a baby, it's like, that's not smart because the kid's going to be crying. He doesn't know what's going on. It's a weird environment to be in. But I was told that I was in my mom's arms or whatever throughout that whole movie, and I didn't make any noise. So I think that was literally the first movie I ever saw, and whatever was going on there, it just clicked in my head because, it just seemed like years later when I was like older and more aware of what's going on and everything with it, we're more aware of, oh, I'm watching a movie. It was just somehow it got to me where I'm just like, oh boy, I'm actually watching something that I can't see anywhere else. Like I had a big window, and I remember I would look out the window and I'd be like, the window in this TV looks a little bit more interesting because it's like, oh, look at this big city, look at all of this grimy stuff. It's like I live in Kansas, and we lived in a small town, so it was kind of a little neighborhood that was around there, and I just remember just going like, wow, that's what's out there. That's amazing. and I'm just like, I don't see anybody wearing like fedora hats and all that look and everything. I just, even when I was young, I was like, that's the look I want to go for. I like it, and it's carried with me ever since then, and
have you ever gone with that look?
Oh yes, yeah. I have a fedora. I keep a gray fedora hat that's on my coat rack right here. And if it wasn't summer right now, like when it gets to be a little bit warmer, it's like, I like to dress up a little bit, like have a tie and stuff. And that's one of the things that I gotta admit that my girlfriend liked about me. It's like, oh, I like how you're that retro and you have that classic look to you. And I'm just like, I can't say that I've seen too many other, I guess some people kind of have some of it somewhere. They like to wear like those little like trilby hats, basically, as I call them. It's like, no, you got to have the big wide fedora and stuff. You gotta look all 1940s stuff like that. I'm just like, oh, you're trying to be Frank Sinatra, are you? Yeah, okay, that's good for you. But it's like, no, I got to be, like, to me, I'm just like, I guess another thing associated with this man is like, oh, Jack Napier looks so boss with his black hat and the black coat, because it's not quite a fedora. It's like almost like a stovepipe hat, but it's got that really wide, like almost Spanish brim and stuff. Like I've tried to find that exact hat, but I get close, but then I'm like, I put it on. I'm like, I look like I'm an Amish person. This doesn't work. But yeah, this is just a movie. It's been with, I always like to say I grow up with it. So like every time when June 23 hits, I'm like, oh, hey, it's my birthday, buddy, basically. It's like, oh, you get to turn 28 too? Well, now I'm 28 as well. All right.
So, but what are your feelings on like the current? What were your feelings on like the Nolan reboots, and then like now the current wave of DCEU?
Oh, it's I don't know. To me, it's just it's like the Nolan ones. I remember the first two. We went. Me and my friend, we went crazy for him because we were both kind of he was my friend. He was my best friend, and we always made a big deal. It's like, oh, isn't that great how you were? It was like, oh, you were born in 1989 when Batman came out, and you get to graduate high school when The Dark Knight comes out and stuff. And we just made a big deal about it because also my senior year in high school, I did a whole I did a whole hour-long presentation just talking about the movie, and you were only supposed to talk for like 10 minutes about whatever subject you wanted. And I picked this one, and I actually went over the time just to talk to people, and it was fun because at the end of it, one of the teachers that evaluated me go, "Oh my God, I can't believe you can talk." But as you can see, if you get me talking about something I want to, yeah. But no. But anyway, to go back to what you said, it was like, yeah, I love the first two Nolan movies, and they're just good because they're so different. But then third one came along, and I didn't really like how they had to wrap everything up there, and kind of with this whole thing, I was Affleck just kind of rubs me the wrong way, and it's just I'm just like it's just with this movie it was just like a perfect meld of like this people going this isn't going to work, and then it ended up working, because I can't tell you how annoyed I get when people say like when Ryan Reynolds was cast as Green Lantern, they were like, "Oh no, you got to give this a chance," just like Michael Keaton as Batman. I'm like, look, Michael Keaton had something to prove. He's a very versatile actor, and this was his opportunity to let that out, because you've seen him in all these comedies and he gets to do this. With Ryan Reynolds, it's like the best thing for him to do is Deadpool. So let him do that. Don't tell him be this straight-laced superhero like Green Lantern. And then people go, God, why didn't this work? There's your problem.
But I guess that's because we've got a whole another day this week to cover as well. So we can anything else, any other Bat stuff you wanna bring up, we can get into it next in the next episode. So
yes, that's the end of this one, minute 26. So make sure to join us again on Friday, where we'll have minute 27. And Dan will be back with us then as well, unless he hates us and is going to run off, which is a possibility. And review us on iTunes. That's always helpful. Let us know if you've reviewed us so I can check it, because, sometimes I forget. And send us a message on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Tumblr, all of them. Just look up BatMinute89. It's easy to find. There's no others. We're the original, the best. So message us there. And join us again for more BatMinute89.
Next time, a bat walks on the catwalk. Despite needing an urgent exit, our grinning gangster friend is convinced that Gordon's got to get got. Will a lapel lifting by a more lugubrious form of lunatic change his mind? Find out next time. Same Bat Pod.
Different Bat Minute.